The Battle of Hoth remains one of the most iconic moments in galactic history, not just for its cinematic grandeur, but for the intricate layers of strategy, sacrifice, and underlying mysteries that have surrounded it since that fateful day. As the Rebel Alliance fought valiantly against the overwhelming might of the Galactic Empire, much has been said about the battle itself, but hidden within its icy corridors and among the towering at ATS are truths and secrets that provide a deeper understanding of this pivotal event. Hoth, a desolate ice planet on the Outer Rim, was not chosen by accident as a rebel base. The decision to establish Echo Base was influenced by multiple factors, most of which remain classified even decades later. While its remote location offered a strategic advantage, there were whispers of something more lurking beneath the surface. Ancient records and hyperspace navigational logs suggest that Hoth was once a waypoint for pre-Republic travelers, a relic of a forgotten era when the galaxy's borders were still undefined. Echo Base's proximity to certain natural formations, massive ice caverns that extended deep beneath the planet's crust, suggests the rebels may have unearthed secrets far older than their fight against the Empire. Was Hoth merely a tactical decision, or was it a calculated gamble to safeguard something ancient? The rebels, led by General Raikan and the indomitable Leia Organa, were under no illusions about the vulnerability of their position. They knew the Empire's relentless pursuit would inevitably lead to confrontation. Yet the decision to remain on Hoth, even as probes and patrols grew closer, hints at a greater sense of purpose. One could argue it was a calculated risk designed to buy time for larger operations across the galaxy, but intercepted Imperial transmissions suggest that Darth Vader himself was acutely interested in Hoth for reasons beyond the Alliance. The Sith Lord's fixation on locating Luke Skywalker was well documented, but his precise methods and why Hoth became the flashpoint remain obscured. Some historians have speculated that Vader's advisors or even the Emperor had identified Hoth as a site of particular force, significance, and uncharted resonance tied to ancient Sith or Jedi lore. The arrival of the Imperial fleet above Hoth was anything but random. Rebel intelligence operatives had intercepted reports of Vader's personal fleet conducting wide-sweep maneuvers across neighboring systems. While Echo Base's communications array was state-of-the-art, it was not immune to detection. The deployment of probe droids, one of which ultimately discovered the base, was seen by many as inevitable. However, certain fragments of data recovered after the battle indicate that the droid in question, the one that transmitted the location of Echo Base, may not have acted purely as programmed. It behaved erratically before self-destruction, suggesting interference. Did a third party, perhaps an independent force, influence the droid's findings? Or was this simply the result of long-term Imperial experimentation with adaptive AI? When the Empire descended upon Hoth, their approach was deliberately methodical. Despite their overwhelming firepower and the capacity to annihilate Echo Base from orbit, they chose a ground assault. Ostensibly, this was to prevent the destruction of critical intelligence or the loss of key rebel leaders, such as Organa. However, declassified Imperial records suggest that Vader himself insisted on the ground assault, overriding Admiral Ozzel's recommendations. Ozzel's hesitation and eventual blunder in coming out of hyperspace too close to the planet are often cited as a reason for the rebels' successful evacuation. But perhaps his actions, often attributed to incompetence, were a form of silent rebellion. There's evidence that certain officers within the Empire were increasingly wary of Vader's obsession with personal vendettas, and Ozzel's mistake may have been a covert attempt to undermine the Sith Lord's plans. The Imperial ground assault, led by General Veers and his walkers, was a terrifying display of military precision. The all-terrain armored transports, designed for maximum psychological and physical impact, lumbered across the icy plains toward the rebel defenses. While their effectiveness in conventional warfare is unquestionable, their use on Hoth's terrain has long puzzled military analysts. Hoth's unpredictable ice formations and concealed crevasses made it an unlikely choice for heavy walkers, which risked immobilization. The fact that the 8 ATS remained operational throughout the battle speaks to Veer's meticulous planning and perhaps the Empire's knowledge of Hoth's terrain in advance. Were Imperial reconnaissance teams dispatched to Hoth prior to the battle, mapping out routes for the walkers? If so, it raises questions about how much time the Empire had to prepare and why the rebels did not detect these movements. On the rebel side, their defense was nothing short of remarkable, given the disparity in resources and numbers. The deployment of T-47 airspeeders, modified for the harsh environment, was a stroke of ingenuity. The pilots, many of whom were inexperienced, managed to use unconventional tactics, such as tow cables to bring down the mighty at ATS. This tactic, devised under extreme duress, showcased the rebels' adaptability and their ability to exploit even the smallest weaknesses in the Empire's formidable arsenal. However, some accounts suggest that the rebels had prior knowledge of the Walkers' vulnerabilities. Could it be that stolen Imperial schematics, obtained through the Alliance's vast intelligence network, played a role? Or was it simply the result of desperate ingenuity in the heat of battle? One of the most enduring mysteries of the battle is the role of the Wampas, Hoth's native predators. While their attacks on Echo Base personnel were initially viewed as an unfortunate hazard of the planet's environment, later evidence suggests a more coordinated effort. Surveillance footage recovered after the evacuation indicates that certain Wampas exhibited behaviors suggesting intelligence beyond mere animalistic instincts. There are even accounts, though unverified, of Wampas breaching base defenses in targeted areas, as if guided by some external force. Was this coincidence, or did the Wampas serve as unwitting pawns in a larger scheme? The possibility of Sith influence manipulating the creatures to sow chaos cannot be dismissed outright. As the battle raged on, the evacuation of Echo Base became the Alliance's primary objective. The use of GR-75 medium transports, shielded by ion cannons to disable pursuing Star Destroyers, was a risky but effective strategy. The ion cannon itself, a massive installation built at great expense and effort, was critical to the rebels' survival. Its presence on Hoth, a remote and ostensibly temporary base, raises questions about the rebels' intentions. Did they anticipate such a massive assault? Or was the ion cannon part of a larger plan to establish Hoth as a more permanent stronghold? The resources required to construct and maintain such a weapon suggest a level of preparation that exceeds the standard rebel operating procedure. Perhaps the greatest secret of the Battle of Hoth lies not in the strategies or the technology, but in the individuals who played key roles. Luke Skywalker, still early in his journey as a Jedi, displayed remarkable courage and leadership. His decision to join the battle, despite being a prime target for Vader, was pivotal. Yet his departure from Hoth, rather than staying with the main rebel fleet, has long been a subject of speculation. Officially, Skywalker left to seek out the mysterious Jedi Master Yoda on Dagobah, guided by the Force and the instructions of Obi-Wan Kenobi's spirit. However, some accounts suggest that his departure was coordinated with rebel leadership, who recognized the importance of his training for the future of the Alliance. Did Leia and the others knowingly send him on a mission that could jeopardize his life, understanding the stakes involved? The aftermath of the battle was equally significant. The rebels' escape, though a tactical retreat, was a strategic victory in many ways. They preserved their leadership, scattered their forces to avoid annihilation, and lived to fight another day. For the Empire, the battle marked a bittersweet success. They had forced the Alliance from Hoth but failed to capture its key figures or destroy the rebellion outright. The emotional toll on Vader, who sensed the presence of his son but failed to capture him, added a personal dimension to the conflict. This failure likely deepened his resolve and led to his intensified efforts to turn Luke to the dark side. Despite the Empire's claims of victory, the Battle of Hoth exposed cracks within their seemingly invincible facade. The rebels' ability to resist, even under such dire circumstances, proved that the Alliance was more than a ragtag group of insurgents. It demonstrated the power of unity, resourcefulness, and hope in the face of overwhelming odds. Yet, beneath the surface of this narrative lies a labyrinth of unanswered questions, secrets that continue to captivate historians, strategists, and Force scholars alike. The role of the Death Squadron and its failure to fully utilize the potential of the Super Star Destroyer Executor during the Battle of Hoth is a critical aspect of the engagement. It highlights not only the immense resources of the Galactic Empire, but also the internal flaws and tactical missteps that plagued its war machine, even at the height of its power. Death Squadron, the personal fleet of Darth Vader, was among the most formidable military formations in the galaxy. Composed of multiple Imperial-class Star Destroyers and centered around the Executor, the Super Star Destroyer that dwarfed all other capital ships in size and firepower, it represented the peak of the Empire's military might. The squadron's purpose was not only to project overwhelming force but also to act as a mobile command center for Vader's relentless pursuit of the Rebel Alliance and, specifically, Luke Skywalker. Its deployment to Hoth was intended to deliver a decisive blow to the rebellion. Yet, despite its overwhelming superiority in numbers, technology, and firepower, Death Squadron's role in the battle revealed critical shortcomings, particularly in the use of the Executor. The Executor was a technological marvel, designed to inspire terror and crush any resistance. Measuring 19 kilometers in length and armed with thousands of turbolasers, ion cannons, and other advanced weaponry, it could single-handedly devastate entire fleets or planetary surfaces. As the flagship of Death Squadron, it served as a symbol of the Empire's unyielding dominance. However, during the Battle of Hoth, the Executor was surprisingly underutilized, relegated to a relatively passive role in the engagement. One of the primary reasons for this underutilization was the strategic and tactical philosophy of Darth Vader himself. Vader's obsession with capturing key rebel leaders, particularly Luke Skywalker and Leia Organa, dictated the course of the battle. This fixation led to an emphasis on precision and containment rather than outright destruction. The Executor, with its massive firepower and ability to deliver indiscriminate devastation, was ill-suited to Vader's objective of capturing rather than annihilating. As a result, the ship's full capabilities were deliberately restrained. The fleet relied on a ground assault to breach Echo Base, rather than employing the Executor or orbital bombardment to obliterate the rebel position outright. Admiral Ozzel's mishandling of Death Squadron's approach to Hoth further compounded the failure to use the Executor effectively. By bringing the fleet out of hyperspace too close to the planet, Ozzel not only alerted the rebels to the impending attack, but also limited the tactical options available to the Executor. The element of surprise, critical for a ship of such scale and power to deploy its overwhelming firepower effectively, was lost. Vader's swift execution of Ozzel for his incompetence was telling, but it came too late to alter the battle's dynamics. The new fleet commander, Admiral Pyatt, inherited a compromised situation and was unable to fully leverage the Executor in the face of rebel preparations for evacuation. Another factor that limited the Executor's effectiveness was the Rebel Alliance's use of innovative defensive measures. The ion cannon installed at Echo Base, while not capable of directly challenging the Executor or other Star Destroyers, was instrumental in disabling Imperial ships momentarily, creating gaps in the fleet's formation. This allowed rebel transports to escape and limited Death Squadron's ability to establish total control over the battlefield. The Executor, despite its massive size and firepower, was still vulnerable to such tactics when its smaller escort ships were incapacitated. This reveals a key weakness in the Empire's reliance on centralized power. The Executor's might was only as effective as the support ships that enabled it to function within a fleet. Death Squadron's failure to deploy the Executor aggressively during the battle can also be seen as a consequence of internal Imperial politics. While Vader held ultimate authority over the squadron, the hierarchical nature of the Imperial Navy meant that decisions were often constrained by bureaucratic caution and fear of failure. Officers were reluctant to suggest bold or risky strategies, knowing that mistakes could result in Vader's lethal wrath. This environment stifled creativity and adaptability, leaving the Executor to serve more as a symbol of Imperial dominance than an active participant in the battle. From a logistical perspective, the deployment of the Executor was also a costly undertaking. Super Star Destroyers required enormous resources to operate, from their energy demands to the personnel needed to man the ship. Its presence in the Hoth system was a clear display of the Empire's willingness to commit overwhelming force to crush the Rebel Alliance. Yet the very scale of the Executor may have been a hindrance in the tightly contested conditions of the battle. The Rebel evacuation, taking place in the chaos of atmospheric and near-orbit skirmishes, left little room for a massive ship like the Executor to maneuver effectively without risking collisions or friendly fire incidents. This logistical limitation further curtailed its role in the battle. Moreover, the psychological impact of the Executor's presence, while significant, did not translate into a tangible strategic advantage. The rebels, already accustomed to facing insurmountable odds, were not deterred by the sight of the massive flagship. Instead, their resolve seemed to harden in the face of such overwhelming force. The Executor, intended as a weapon of terror, became a looming but largely inactive presence during the engagement. The aftermath of the Battle of Hoth further underscores the failure of Death Squadron to capitalize on the Executor's capabilities. While the Empire succeeded in forcing the rebels to abandon Echo Base, the primary objectives of the operation, capturing key rebel leaders and delivering a crippling blow to the Alliance, were not achieved. The Executor, despite its unparalleled firepower, was unable to prevent the escape of the Millennium Falcon or pursue the scattered rebel fleet effectively. This failure was particularly galling for Vader, as it represented a missed opportunity to assert total dominance and further his personal quest to locate and capture Luke Skywalker. In retrospect, the role of the Executor in the Battle of Hoth serves as a cautionary tale about the limitations of overwhelming power without the corresponding flexibility and strategic clarity. The ship's sheer size and firepower, while impressive, were ultimately constrained by the tactical decisions and broader strategic objectives of the Empire. Death Squadron's reliance on the Executor as a centerpiece of its operations exposed the weaknesses inherent in the Empire's approach to warfare, a focus on spectacle and terror at the expense of adaptability and precision. This failure also highlights the contrasting philosophies of the Rebel Alliance and the Galactic Empire. While the Empire prioritized displays of power, the rebels relied on ingenuity, resourcefulness, and decentralized command. The Battle of Hoth demonstrated that even the most powerful weapon in the galaxy could be rendered ineffective if not employed with the right strategy. In the end, the Executor and Death Squadron, for all their might, failed to deliver the decisive victory that the Empire sought at Hoth. Their inability to adapt to the rebels' tactics and the logistical constraints of the battlefield revealed the cracks in the Empire's military doctrine. The Executor would go on to play a more active role in later engagements, but the Battle of Hoth remains a testament to the fact that raw power alone is not enough to guarantee success.